Here's a vehicle with a stuck caliper slide pin down here. So what I've done already is I've taken my C-clamp, as we discussed in other videos, put it back here, being careful not to hit the brake hose, and driven the caliper piston back into the caliper. I've loosened off these the pins into the slider pins just to save time, so you wouldn't have to watch that. But even just with them loose like here, you can see the top pin. That top guide pin is not stuck. You can see that down here, this one is not. You get two bolts, two guide pin. These bolts go through the caliper and into the threaded part of the guide pin. So here, careful not to drop that. See how nice and easy that guide pin on the top moves. See how this one down here does not move at all. I'll try to loosen that up and we'll have another look. In this case, the end of the guide pins, well, an 18 millimeter socket will fit over them. Now, as we discussed, back and forth, that one's right nice and loose. I'm going to put this on the end of my ratchet and see if maybe we can loosen it up that way. I'm going to pop these pads out just to show you how badly worn they are. And then I'm going to try to pound that guide pin out of there. So this is what a stuck guide pin can do. The inner pad always wears more because of the pressure differential. This is the inner pad. There is literally nothing left of it. This is the outer one. There's not much more left on that. So our method with the socket did not release the pin fully, although it did move back and forth, so that's promising. And without damaging my boot here, the rubber boot, like up on the top, this rubber one here, I'm gonna try to pound that out. You can get the boots for a couple of bucks, but maybe I can sell them. I'm on the driver's side of the vehicle here. There shouldn't be any issues with the operation of the caliper on this side because I didn't hear any grinding and scraping noises coming from the driver's side of the vehicle. I'm going to retract the piston and we're going to compare the operation of the caliper on the slide pins on this side. With the pressure off of the brake pads, we can see that this caliper is functioning properly as far as our guide pins go. We can see it easily sliding both on the top and we get in the bottom there, right here. So that's the way they should operate. As you just saw, I removed the brake pads on the driver's side, the side with no issues. Lots of pit. It's amazing the difference a bit of heat can make. I heated up that about 3 minutes, and as you saw, the seize bolt popped out. I don't know if you noticed, but our dust boot here ripped in the process. Once I realized we were going to put the heat to it, I wrote off trying to salvage those. So we're going to put the 2 new dust boots in. These are pretty cheap. They were like $6 for 2 of them. Canada, December of 2022. So to get these old ones out, what I always do is I take a box cutter knife and just kind of try to get rid of the crap and corrosion right around the edge, and then you kind of go with successively bigger screwdrivers. Small one like this, then a larger one. I'm going to fast forward through the process, but you'll get the idea as we do it. I think you get the idea there. It's just a matter of being a little patient, and the old ones will pop out. Hopefully yours will pop out easier than mine did. The Canadian winters do a job on brake parts around here. And what I always do is I take a small screwdriver or something and just kind of gently go in the inside there, get any crud that is built up, especially on a pin that's been subjected to enough heat that it's seized. Clean that old crap out. Make sure your screwdriver or whatever you're using is clean, which this one was. And then we'll install the new boot. Now we're going to install our new dust boot. You can see I have some of that Easy Glide lubricant around the edge of it, and have your newly cleaned guide pin, or your new guide pin. My parts place didn't have new guide pins in stock. This is a 2007 car, so I was like, you know what, cleaned up the guide pin, put a bunch of grease on it, but not on the very end. You don't want it to so much grease to be in there that it does not fully go into the caliper. The excess grease here will come up into the boot, and we're gonna don't hit this directly. I always put something between the hammer and the dust boot, tap it in place. So I put some slider pin grease over it, and I noticed this black crud coming off from where the pin had overheated. So I'm just going to put it in like that a few times. The grease will attract that crap. Spin it around a few times. See that? Again, if this was not a 2007 vehicle, I would wait and get that new pin, but I gotta get this rig back on the road, and that pretty much seems like it's got most of the corruption out of there now. I'll re-grease this, put her back in. So I got lots of grease on the pin, not over the end though, because I want this pin to go right fully into the mounting plate for the caliper. The excess grease will drive up and go into the boot, and now what we want to do is for that boot to slip up into that groove right here. So I'm going to carefully take my small screwdriver and kind of keep it out. I also don't want a bunch of air in this, so if I take the small screwdriver and lift up, being careful not to rip the boot, it will slide into that groove on the pin. I'm going to install our new brake pads. These particular pads have wear sensors on all of the pads. Here's the wear sensor. This makes the squealing noise when your pad gets down to really low. Some of them only have the sensor on one of the pads. When that is the case, I put the pad with the sensor on the inside, facing the inside of the vehicle, because that pad tends to wear faster. I'm also going to remove these spring clips. Normally I would just clean them up, but the new pads have these new spring clips. Once the brake pads are in place, we slide our caliper over it. I have one of the bolts in place, you can see right here. And what we're going to do is, in this case, it is 13mm bolt for the slide pin here, and an 18mm to hold this side of it. Is that coming out there? Anyway, whenever I'm doing work around brakes, whether it's caliper mounting bolts or the bolts for the guide pins, I always put some of this stuff. Not sponsored. This is great stuff. Do yourself a favor, put a bit of it on your bolt. Next time you're doing your brake work, it's going to go a lot easier. Anyway, we'll place the bottom one, and then we'll fast forward as I Tighten these up. I'm going to pump the brakes a couple of times. With a little luck, you should be able to see the caliper here. Contact the brake pad and seat these pads against the rotor.